This video is sponsored by Aquashine Exteriors, professional jet washing and cleaning services across Bournemouth, Christchurch and Poole, including Dorset, Hampshire and Wiltshire. Are you feeling it's time to get that driveway nice and shiny for when you come home? Or are you wanting to get that guttering tidied up and spotless again? They deliver this, plus much, much more. Please head into the description below where you'll find their details for their website, including the socials, Facebook and Instagram. You also need to find their before and after portfolio. You can also call them on 07503 998 088 for a free quotation. Don't wait till next week. Don't think you'll do it another day. Pick up the phone, give them a call, check them out. Hello, welcome live on YouTube, and it's transfer deadline day. Well, this looks a little bit more promising and positive for the Cherries. Lots of you already in the chat. Use that platform tonight. We're going to be on for about an hour and a half, and we're going to talk all of Bournemouth, the last 31 days, and maybe what can we do in this second half of the Premier League season. But first, if you are new to the channel, if you've never seen us before, hit that subscribe button and join us on our journey. Can you also hit the like button tonight? Can we get to at least 50 likes? We can go past 50 likes, but we need to get to a minimum of 50 likes. It really does help the video. So just do it now very quickly while I'm doing this intro. Hit the like button. We'll really appreciate it. We've got the team panel on. We've got lots of stuff that we're going to discuss. We're going to look at a potential lineup. We're going to look at those new signings, and you never know, some stuff might break. Breaking news might happen as well. Now, if you've been under a rock though for the last 31 days and you're not quite sure what's going on, and you've woken up today thinking, well, Bournemouth are a bit busy. Yeah, there has been some stuff that's happened. So if you need bringing up to speed before we talk about today, this is what AFC Bournemouth have been doing in the January transfer window. James Hill's headed out on loan to get game time. He'll be playing in Hearts for the rest of the season. Had an impressive start. Jamal Lowe's headed back to the Championship where he feels comfortable, now playing for QPR to the end of the season. A goal and an assist already. Fan favourite Emi Marcondes has headed back to Denmark on loan to the end of the season. We wish him well. First man in for the Cherries is Dango Ouattara on a big money move, big contract. He got an assist on his debut versus Nottingham Forest. Darren Randolph, he switched West Ham for AFC Bournemouth on an 18-month contract for an extra goalkeeper position in our team. Antoine Semenyo got the move he was looking for. He switched Bristol City for AFC Bournemouth. And Matías Viña comes in on loan from Roma with an option to buy at the end of the season for extra cover at left back and competition. And we'll bring you right up to speed with today. And we have got a couple of guests joining us this evening. Jon Spark, we got there. The Cherries look in a better place than we did about 31 days ago. Lots to talk about this evening.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for having me on again, Kirk. Pleasure to talk with the two of you about the business that Bournemouth are doing as we go into a historic period for Bournemouth as a wheeling and dealing side.
Back in August at full-time at Anfield, Aaron, apparently we didn't have a big enough or a good enough side to compete in. And recently, under our new head coach, maybe it was suggesting that we didn't have a big enough or competitive side to compete in. Are we looking more promising going into the next set of fixtures in the second half of the season?
Well, certainly better than it was a couple of weeks ago for sure. Yeah, it's exciting times, you know, spending money that we only ever dreamt of that we would spend. And Bill Foley, you know, for all the talk is beginning to come up trumps with, you know, spending money where we need it. So yeah, really exciting times ahead. Hopefully the next 3 hours, not that we're going for 3 hours, but the next 3 hours before the window closes brings more excitement. A couple expected and hopefully some more on the way.
There'll be lots of banners showing up on the bottom of the screen as well, bring you up to date. If there's any breaking news, we'll bring it to you as well. Look, if you hear breaking news, do let us know in the chat. We'll need to verify it, but do let us know what is happening because we're going to try and entertain you in this stream. Now, let's just see who's joining us. Mike from the USA, hope you're doing well. Chris Hubble. Mike said it's been nuts. Happy deadline day from Morgan. Aaron Kaye's in the chat as well. Welcome in, everyone. Mark Cole, how are you? Matthew Gale, you Reds, Cameron Meach, thank you very much for joining us. Daniel, also from the USA, but he's well happy at the moment. We've also got Sean, Ray and the family. I hope I said that right, but thanks for joining us. We've got Marky Masters. How are you? Always optimistic, Marky is. So hope you're doing well. We've got Auntie Skeptic, Cherry Tree is blooming. Graham, Way, Enzo Fernandez to Chelsea. Right. Yep. We'll keep it on the cherries, but thanks for joining us, Graham. Morgan's in there telling us about Newcastle because Newcastle playing in the Carabao Cup semi-final as well. And yeah, look, we'll have an eye on everything, but we want to talk the cherries. Let's get some stuff out then that happened early doors, guys. Let's talk about the loans out then. So bring us up to speed like we just did in that roundup. Jamal Lowe has gone to QPR, already had a very, very good start to that loan spell. Emi Marcondes, James Hill has had a man-of-match performance for Hearts, and they're doing really well in the SPFL. Gav Kilkenny today has switched Stoke for Charlton. That's a promising move for him, hopefully. Too much time spent on the bench. Been unfortunate with injuries. John, the loans that have gone out, very much still AFC Bournemouth players at this point, and those are players that definitely need to get some minutes into their football feet.
Yes, minutes in the boots. I think they're all sort of sensible in terms of as far as I remember, none of them include buy options in those deals. So they are all just good opportunities for players that are not getting any minutes for us now to go out and get some match time to make sure that worst comes to the worst and we do end up going down, then we have experienced players that have actually got some level of form going into a season where we would certainly expect to be coming straight back up again. Of course, we want to avoid that. And fingers crossed, what this does is while we're absolutely shooting our way up the table, they're making sure that their market value stays nice and at a decent rate so that we can sell them on for a decent fee. So yeah, it's a win-win when you've got players that aren't going to be getting time for us going out and getting some experience elsewhere.
To bring players in, Aaron, we needed to offload some players. No actual physical transfers out, just all loans. But just probably going to echo what John said there. All great players, all players that are well respected within the club. But yeah, just found minutes hard to come by this season.
Yeah, I mean, found minutes hard to come by with the current squad that we had. So, if we were going to strengthen, we obviously bought 4 in already, potentially another 2 or 3 to come in. So clearly we had to make way within the squad. You only allow 25 people. Obviously some don't count because they're under 21. But yeah, I mean, if they weren't getting game time before, they're certainly not going to be getting game time now. And as John said, it's critical that, we keep them. They're important players. Certainly if we do go down, then they've got a big part to play next season in the Championship, potentially. And it's good for them. We want to develop, get them to develop, play at the highest level they possibly can in the interim and see what they can do.
We've also got Paul from Australia. Thanks for joining us. Sean is how it's pronounced, so I'll remember that moving forward. Really appreciate that. Daniel's also put in the chat that Ryan Fraser might be going to Hull City. That was worth it by him, wasn't it? That was worth it. There are some deals that we've been working on today that we'll try and still stay in touch with. These are deals that are agreed for Ilya Zabarnyi, and we're also looking at Traorè as well. So these are deals we're just waiting for real confirmations from the club, maybe some media images. So we'll just wait for them to come through, but we're working on them currently. Traorè is about 21 million plus add-ons and Zabarnyi is 24 million. We'll talk about those in a little while, guys, and they'll be massive players for us. Let's just talk about some of the incoming signings we've already made. Dango Ouattara from Lorient had an impressive debut, Aaron, against Nottingham Forest, got an assist. He was bubbly. He wanted the ball. He wanted to get behind. Everything we probably needed in the 3 or 4 months leading up to this window.
Yeah, that's thrown straight in. I'm pleased. Obviously, we have a record of not throwing players straight in, and for sometimes for good reason. But I think in our situation, why not throw them in? We had a poor run of results, and he provided so much for us down that right hand side, pace, power. And how many times have all of us said constantly on this show that one thing we're lacking is severe pace, and he's certainly going to provide that, and so will some of the others we'll come on to later. So that's certainly such a big advantage in the Premier League to have pace. But yeah, right foot, left foot, he's got it all. An incredible leap. Really impressed with his debut. Obviously, he's still young, more to come, quite raw. As he missed some chances in the second half, but so much to be positive about with him, and he looks an infectious character, really enthusiastic and wanting to prove himself on the top level. So yeah, I mean, look, we played a poor Nottingham Forest, but for me, he was excellent, and really excited to see more of him.
John, we spoke about it, I think, in our latest transfer video before today, and we spoke about this type of player being really good for us. It's really promising, a long deal, had good numbers at Lorient, so he looks like he can just hit the ground running for us. He's played pretty much every game for them. And look, he had a good day out against Nottingham Forest, but we are going to need consistency in the next second half of the season. We just can't afford to underperform too many games. We need to perform most games, and if we're going to have a chance this season.
Yeah, absolutely. But when you consider the players that we had out in that game, and also the fact that we did have a new signing coming in, he had 1 day of training with the team. There is a language barrier still very much present. I think his impact was certainly strong, and we will look back at that as 2 points dropped, obviously because of the late goal conceded, and because for decent periods of that game, it felt like it was just a moment, any moment we were going to score because of the attacks that we were producing. But that was not a full strength side by any means for Bournemouth, and we have now strengthened even further. We can't now look at what we haven't done over the past couple months, which has been some very poor performances, I will grant you, but we've still got just under half a season to go. There are all the more important matches are coming up now rather than the ones we have played. So we've got to really focus on gelling this new set of players together and getting the most out of them that we can.
Stu's also come in with apparently the Lucas Moura rumours are true. So Aaron Kaye is normally our journalist for Cherries Red Army. So all over to you, Aaron.
No, I haven't seen that one.
I've not seen that one anywhere.
I saw one tweet about it, so I'm not sure how strong it is, but as I say, Stu's throwing it out there. Not sure. I just saw it earlier. Sean has also come in and said about Dembele. I'll just throw it out there now, just so I don't forget later on. Potentially going to Auxerre. Dembele is a player that should have had more game time for me. He's had that pace that we really lacked. Obviously, we've got it now with the incoming transfers, but Dembele was the only real player in our squad that had that pace, that player that could take us 20 yards up the pitch. He has a little bit of unpredictable in him in regards to, I'm not even sure he knows what he's going to do, Aaron, when he's got the ball. But yeah. Dembele hasn't really got the time and the minutes that he's deserved, and I don't know why, but he looks like he's going out on loan.
Yeah, Sean hit the nail on the head there, because I wouldn't say I love Dembele because I haven't seen enough of him, to be honest. It's difficult to judge, but in the patches he's come on, certainly at Brentford, he was the one live wire that we needed. And as you say, in a team severely lacking pace and kind of the ability to take a player on with our current personnel, he was the one player, bar Tav probably, the one player that can actually do that. And with our severe kind of lack of resources, it was a surprise that Gary O'Neill didn't play him more often, even coming off the bench or starting or just as an outlet. But as I said earlier, if he wasn't playing before, he's certainly not going to play now, because we actually have now bought that pace wide, and the number of players we've bought in, have all got that pace and ability to play across the front three. So his game time is going to be even less. So I don't begrudge him that move. Again, another one, looks like it's a straight loan, no option to buy, which again, I'm happy about, because as it stands at the moment, I don't want to lose him for next season were we to go down. But obviously I think, the caliber of player we're bringing in now, hopefully will probably be a level above him. So, I think it's sensible for everybody, but it's not surprising.
Yeah, John, we probably don't need to spend too long on the next incoming signing. He's replaced his 6-month contract with West Ham for an 18-month contract. I did speak about this in regards to when Neto got injured. We're talking about Darren Randolph here coming in as an extra goalkeeper cover. And when Neto got injured, you had Mark Travers slotting back in at number 1. And we know that Mark Travers is not performing at the level he was last season, but I still have a lot of belief in Mark Travers. But we had Cameron playing on the bench for 9 games, and I'm okay with this Randolph deal. I know that he conceded 8 against us in a Birmingham shirt, I think, and all that jazz. But I think it's not a number 1 goalkeeper. It's someone that if we need him to replace Neto or Travers, you think he might be coming in as a number 2, maybe. So yeah, it's okay. I'm okay with Randolph.
Yeah, this was for those of you who didn't watch. This was something that Kirk and I discussed on our previous video, talking about as a sort of a midway update, as it was at the time, before our transfer dealings really kicked into high gear. That I personally think Randolph is coming in as a number 2, because I think Travers at the moment is just not deemed good enough to really even necessarily be suitable backup at the moment by. Well, I would say by a lot of Bournemouth fans as well, but certainly by the Bournemouth hierarchy, I would think. And Randolph is a very experienced goalkeeper. And the 8-0 was something that we didn't bring up at the time. I don't think either of us considered it. But it's he's played plenty of seasons in the Premier League. He is a decent shot stopper. He's just an all-round decent keeper at this level. And whilst Neto is still the better of the two, I'm very confident of that. He is a very capable backup, and it's just a sensible deal.
You okay with Randolph, Aaron?
Yeah, I mean, on the face of it, yeah, absolutely. I've got no problem with Randolph coming in at all. For the financial arrangement, it makes a lot of sense. My only concern is, my only feeling about it is that that's another place in the 25, and I'm pretty sure Travers isn't going to go out on loan. There's been no mood music about that at all.
No.
And if you look at most top clubs, they kind of have 2 top goalies, and then they do have a kind of a youth player should they need him, which is what we have with Cameron playing. So absolutely no grumbles about bringing him in and probably being our number 2 from now. But then I just wonder whether that's 3 places taken up in the squad. That's my only potential grumble about it. Yeah.
We've also got Wayne Weldon. He's a Fulham fan, but he's always quite respectful. He comes into a lot of our streams throughout the season. Now, apparently, Wayne, our head coach, thinks you're struggling this season, but you look like you're having a very good season. And I think you're in for Sanderberg as well. So I don't know if you've got that deal over the line, but thanks for joining us. Thanks for keeping it respectful. And guys, you can join in the chat, but I have asked Aaron and John to play a little bit of a game tonight. I gave them some homework. You always get homework, don't you guys? Always.
Yeah.
Always get
we didn't quite get the homework for the yellow tie. I forgot to get that one.
No, you didn't. You absolutely didn't. Who shall I pick first? Right. So what I asked the guys was to give me predictions up to day 30 before transfer deadline day, and to predict how many points you think AFC Bournemouth will get at the end of the season, your rating of the transfer window minus transfer deadline day, your heart position of the league for AFC Bournemouth, where you think we'll finish, your heart and head, basically. So let's go straight in for John in his lovely green championship shirt. So this is what John said when I gave him some homework, and I hope I've got this right, John. He said the transfer window rating minus transfer deadline day was 8 out of 10. He thinks we'll achieve 34 points. His heart says we'll finish 16th, but his head says we'll finish 19th. John, talk to us about these predictions.
So that transfer, you gave me that homework and I gave it back to you just before we signed, like literally, I don't know, 10 minutes before we confirmed the signing of Viña.
Yeah.
Which would definitely bump that up to probably an 8.5, maybe a 9. I did say to you at the time, maybe 9.5, but I was being a bit over the top, because I still think I'm not entirely sure about whether we have signed one further important area. We could have added a bit more strength, which is centre forward. While Semenyo, I think, can play down the middle as a 9, I don't think that's his main area of expertise. And at the moment, that still leaves us with essentially Kiefer Moore and Dom Solanke as the striker. And as much as we have struggled with keeping goals out at the back, which I'm really pleased with Zabarnyi, who again ups that again, because that was not a name I was familiar with before. I think we're definitely up more to a 9 with that kind of signing. Yeah, I think we've struggled to keep the ball out, as obviously, but the big problem has been scoring goals, and that needs creativity and it needs people to put the ball in the back of the net. And Kiefer Moore has missed a couple of decent chances recently, and we just need to get the ball to our attackers as well better, and we haven't been doing that enough. So we've got a little bit more creativity up going forward, which is great in Traorè and Ouattara, but I think possibly a number 9 could have been looked at as a more as a closer replacement to, I don't say replacement as in if Solanke's injured, Kiefer Moore completely, we need to completely change our style with Kiefer Moore. Someone that would be more similar to Solanke. As for points total, I was going to just go through and guess what I thought we'd get on each one. I just thought, no, you know what, sorry, I'm just going to basically double what we've got, with maybe a slight takeoff of a point, I think, or something similar anyway after doubling, because I could just see us getting very similar sorts of results, maybe in slightly different places. But it is the manager at the moment that is sort of like what I would see as the more limiting factor now in terms of our ability to stay up this season. And then in terms of heart versus head, I think 34 is probably about 19th. I would say I don't think we'll necessarily finish bottom, but I also, 18th and 19th doesn't really make much difference as to whether we go down or not. And then in terms of heart, I say that if things suddenly turn off, if things suddenly kick off, Gary O'Neill is able to sort of pull out a strong plan from somewhere. We get some different plans than just basically give it to Tavernier and get it up the pitch. Then it's possible we don't just nick survival in 17th. That when we push a little bit further on. I mean, I remember that what was it? Our first season up with under Eddie, we finished 16th, but I mean we were safe with about a month and a half to go, and I think we only got like one win after that or something, if I remember, away at Villa. But yeah, I mean, if things work, if things click, then it's not just a case of just about scraping by. It's a case of finishing even a bit higher than that. But if things don't click and we sort of pick points up here and there as we have been, then obviously we know where that's going to end up.
Continue to interact in the chat. Use that platform. Speak with other fans. We'll show some of the chat comments on the screen. Paul Horry, welcome to Transfer Deadline Day. I'm confident we won't go down. That's what we absolutely need. And Sean's in there also talking about, I think, keeping the likes of Tavernier fit. Will Brooks be in this potential new squad for the second half of the season? We'll have to see. I think Newcastle are on their way to Wembley as well. So, John, on those predictions, we'll probably see out the stream later on. I want to know whether you're going to change your head prediction at the end. You brought up Semenyo there. So, Aaron, let's just quickly talk about Antoine Semenyo, a player that we've been chasing for a few transfer windows. It was like the saga of Damari Gray that we've known previously. Semenyo was quite keen on the transfer. Initially, I think we went in for 8 million. That was rejected, or 10 million, can't remember. And then it was 9 million agreed with add-ons. Semenyo got the deal. A couple of players that were really interested and happy to see this go through was Jay-Z and Jaden Anthony, all over their stories and Instagram. Semenyo's numbers really good last year in the Championship. I will say that. Very, very good. This year, been on the bench more for Bristol City than he's been off the bench, but I am told that's because of injuries, nothing else. Look, it's going to be another one of them. Can he step up? He's young. Can he hit the ground running? Does he need time to bed in? We don't know if he's Premier League quality yet, like a lot of our players that come up from the Championship. We'll just have to give him a chance, I suppose. It felt like one of those signings, Aaron, that was like preparing for the Championship if we didn't stay up initially, because we weren't seeing all these other signings coming in at the time. That's how I felt about it initially when the deal was done.
Yeah, I've warmed to it. I mean, when we first linked with him, I wasn't against it. It didn't massively set my heart racing. But as you say, in the context of everything else we've done, I think it's a very sensible signing. He's very young. Again, I go back to the pace and the power and a bit of trickery, which is just, we've kind of lacked that in our forward line. And I think John mentioned earlier, perhaps his favourite position is potentially coming off the left, but he can play central. I do think, certainly if Dom's out, which he might be for the next few games or a couple of games at least, then he's a potentially better option than Kiefer Moore because of his pace and that ability. So he might be asked to play a bit more centrally if and when Dom is unavailable, which hopefully won't be that often. But yeah, look, his stats aren't great, but I think he's, again, like Tavernier, he came from the Championship, and look at him, probably one of our players of the season, and how we missed him terribly. So yeah, I've as I said, I've kind of warmed to Semenyo. I'm looking forward to seeing him play. I think people thrive in a high division with better players around you. Certainly now with the players around him who we have bought in, he'll get some good service, a lot of the ball, and yeah, I'm really looking forward to it. I think he's got a lot of good attributes. And just as we're speaking, it's number 27, Zabarnyi, has got the shirt, apparently.
Right. What's the source? What's coming in? Who's breaking it? Is it Mark McAdam, Alex Crook?
It's not on the official yet, because I've been keeping an eye on it. They have teased it, because they've Zabarnyi is quite famous on Football Manager for being a wonder kid. So they're teasing it on the official Twitter, and he's not on the official website, I don't think, as of yet.
Fabrizio Romano's just broken it, but he's generally we know it's going to happen.
Fabrizio Romano put out a photo of him signing his contract performance. So so that was
When we get we hope to get an image from maybe the club website, and we'll share screen it on this stream, and then we'll talk about Zabarnyi, because he's going to be a big player for the Cherries. Let's quickly just go to the next one then, Aaron. Let's go to you with your predictions with the homework I gave you. If I just scroll down and find it. Right, Aaron, what did you say? You said transfer window 7 out of 10, season points 36, Heart 17th. Head 18th. Talk to me about your predictions up to transfer deadline day.
Yes, again, like John, this was before Viña signed, before Traorè had been mentioned, and certainly before Zabarnyi had been even mentioned at all. So at this stage, we're talking Ouattara, Randolph, Semenyo, and one other. Maybe no, I think that was actually officially it. So I've kind of said 7 out of 10 because at this stage it looked like Viña was definitely going to come. Obviously with disappointment of Jackson, we haven't spoken about yet, but I think you spoke about that on the previous video, so that was a bit deflating. So I 7's obviously a reasonable score. I think by the end of tonight, assuming Traorè and Zabarnyi are confirmed and potentially 1 or 2 more according to Mark McAdam, then certainly pushing 8.5 to 9, and if that extra 1 or 2 is an absolute diamond, then could almost get to 10 potentially. But yeah, I'm probably more on an 8.5 now, I'd say, as things currently stand, pushing 9, because I think the one player I still would like to see come in is a bit more of a sort of centre midfielder, a bit more of a deeper centre midfielder, because Lewis Cook's obviously out for goodness knows how long. Rumours that Ben Pearson's now out for a considerable amount of time with a hamstring injury. He was seen in Bournemouth Hospital getting a scan. So that leaves us with Lerma and Rothwell. And I know we'll come on to Traorè soon, and he can play a bit deeper apparently, but what I would call kind of an orthodox 2, like the 2 in front of a defence as opposed to the 3 or 4 ahead of them, we look a bit light. So that's the one position I would love to bring in now is another central midfielder. Whether it's defensive or just someone a bit deeper, I guess that's the one thing I think we're now potentially lacking. As far as the points total, I'll be honest with you, I was being incredibly optimistic with 36. I was looking at our fixtures. I mean, I didn't painstakingly go through each one, but I kind of tried to go through them and be a bit optimistic, and I came out with 36. But that was a struggle, and we were getting some pretty unexpected results in amongst that. So I do worry that even with the players we've got, with the fixtures we've got, getting to sort of 30, 32 might be a stretch. But and the big but is that now, with the window we've had, then who knows? If they hit the ground running, I said with the ability to create and the pace on the pitch, and hopefully scoring goals and getting Tavernier back, getting Dom back as well. You never know. So similar to John, my heart is obviously saying escaping relegation up at 17th, because that will do. My head still saying, I can't remember if I said 18th or 19th, as it doesn't really make a difference. My head's still saying they're going to get relegated. I think, we might touch on it at the end, but as I said, and I think echoing John, that these players are great and exciting, and the caliber of which I never thought we'd be able to sign. But I still have question marks over the manager, his experience, the team that he has helping him, not for their lack of passion, but just for their lack of experience, know-how, nous. And will they be able to inspire these players and tactically be astute enough to get us up? So that's still my concern. Obviously, can't wait to see what Gary can do with the players now at his disposal. But the jury's still out for me on that. But yeah, I think most Bournemouth fans would probably agree that Heart stay up, Head maybe still getting relegated.
Okay, you'll see the banner at the bottom of the screen. We've got Charlie in there telling us there's a photo. Daniel's already been in there saying Fabrizio said it. When Fabrizio says it, he means it. It's like Mark McAdam. He only comes out when he knows, and he knows. And we have something on the official website. The club done this on purpose, guys, because we wanted to rattle through the signings up to transfer deadline day and then crack on with what's happening today. But we're going to have to switch it up because, yeah, let's get it. It's done. It's done. There is Ilya Zabarnyi holding a AFC Bournemouth shirt. So let's talk about him straight away, guys. This is a guy, Zabarnyi, I'll share screen. Let's click over here. John, a guy that's played Champions League football, and not just one game. He's played quite a few games of Champions League football. Europa League. He's played 5 games in the European Championships. He's got plenty of caps already under his belt. I mean, 20 years old as well, I think. 20-year-old. And when I was comparing him using SofaScore, if anyone uses SofaScore, you can compare players. Comparing him with our other defenders, he doesn't come out on top in creative areas, but that's okay because we want him to defend. And where he defends, he comes out as better in against all our defenders in defending and tackling.
Yes, he does. We always need to be careful in terms of comparisons, obviously, with different leagues. But generally, particularly when you're looking at the level at which he's played, you mentioned he's played in Europe. He's played over a dozen games in European competition. More of those have been in the Champions League than they have in the Europa League. He's got 24 international caps, all of which for the full 90. And yeah, he's only 20 years old. I mean, that's not your average 20-year-old. And brilliantly, that means he doesn't count towards the player cap for our season because he's under 21, so he goes in a separate category. But yeah, I mean, he's been highly rated for a good amount of time. If you Google his name, he was linked to Spurs. It was either 6 months ago or a year ago. He's if you look on for those of you that are on Twitter, if you look at the club announcement they've done on Twitter for him, it's quite good. It's a nice little skit. It's not quite Burnley level of announcement skit, but it is a nice little skit. And yeah, it's just I've only looked him up briefly as well in terms of as we all do, go on YouTube, look up his name and what's his best skills, and he looks very, very capable in terms of he's strong, he's aggressive, he's resilient in the tackle from what I can see so far. And yeah, I'm not thinking if there were areas that we needed to improve. I think centre back was one of the last areas on the list. I would think that we definitely need improvements because of I think the players that we've got are very capable in that position, but there isn't a place that we couldn't improve. There will always be players that you can bring in that will be better than what we've got. And this looks like a fantastic opportunity for us to bring in a very highly rated young player.
Aaron, it does pose a question, though, and it was probably an opportunity that we couldn't turn down with Zabarnyi. I know that he was linked with Tottenham earlier in the summer. When we spoke last night, you also said he was linked with Brighton, and we know how good they are at bringing in players and either making them better players or making money from them a year later or whatever. Zabarnyi comes in. I don't want us to turn into a back three with all the attacking players we're bringing in now. So what does that mean for the other 4 central defenders we had? Because I didn't think we would strengthen that area. I know we've got the worst conceded stat in the league, bearing in mind Anfield plays a lot in that. But I felt like if we just attacked more and we were just a little bit more proactive, I think we'd had a chance at maybe getting some more points. But what does that mean for the likes of Stevens, Kelly, Mepham, Senesi?
It means they're further down the pecking order because this guy's better. I mean, potentially. I mean, this guy's got it all. As John said, he's 20 years old. He's got 24 caps for his country. He's played at the highest level in World Cups, and But the reports I've read about him are just he's not in World Cups, sorry, in Europe, but he's got everything. He's got composure on the ball. He's strong in a tackle. Reads the game. He's right-footed, so I imagine. in order to progress, we got to, as John said, if you can buy players that are better in that position, then you get them if they're available. And so it means that obviously he'll have to play for his place. I'm hoping, and we'll come to the end, I'm hoping these players hit the ground running and are kind of not thrown in the deep end, but they're clearly what we've needed. So hopefully they do start soon. But yeah, it means that they have to fight for their places. And if it means that likes of Meps and Jack Stevens drop down, I also don't want to see a 5. So yeah, they'll be battling for that right side of space, and Lloyd Kelly and Senesi will be battling for that left side of space. And Viña, who we mentioned earlier, can also play left centre back. Apparently, he's played there quite a few times. So the club actually went to the pains of actually pointing it out on their official confirmation of him. So for me, again, look, football's a tough gig. If you want to progress like we want to progress, then as you say, Meps has been our player of the season, one of the arguable player of the season. We know how good Lloyd Kelly can be, etc. But we have got a bad defensive record. So if we can improve it, then there's no room for sentiment in football. And tough as that sounds, then Bournemouth fans have to realise that some player favourites, some people we're very fond of, might not play as much. But if we want to progress as a football club, and this is the sort of signing that we should be making.
Good to see Zabarnyi becomes an AFC Bournemouth player. That's a bit of a statement signing for me. That is a bit of a statement signing. Very quickly from you, John, in regards to, look, it's bonkers. Chris Mepham, player of the season in my eyes, didn't even get on the pitch against Forest, although Stevens, every time he seems to play, puts in an arguable man of the match performance. I mean, it's bonkers, really, that Mepham might not be playing week in, week out.
Yeah, quite possibly. It's a difficult one, because you're absolutely right. I've absolutely thought that Mepham has been arguably our player of the season, and I think him and Senesi actually formed what I thought was a really good partnership. We were starting to form a really good partnership together, and I think that as soon as after the I think it was the Burnley game where Senesi made that mistake, it seems that he was just dropped and Kelly was brought in, even though Kelly really hasn't been fit and has made his share of mistakes as well, and doesn't have that understanding with another centre-back as things currently stand. So, it's perfectly possible that we could see a completely new partnership of Kelly and Zabarnyi, going forward. And it would be I think it would be very harsh on Mepham, because I really think that the failings of us defensively, he is the last person on the list. So it's tough and it's unfortunate, but at the same time, if you can make an improvement, you do it. And Foley is quite clearly not afraid to to put his money where his mouth is and bring in, young talents into the side, particularly ones that have got such a pedigree or at least have shown to be so good as Zabarnyi.
So Traorè might be on his way as well, Cameron's mentioned in the chat. So let's keep rattling through, because we are going to try and build the best AFC Bournemouth team that we could put on the pitch if everyone's fit later on in the stream. Let's just quickly have a look at what my predictions were then up to deadline day. I thought I'd get involved. I normally cop out, don't I, guys? But let me get involved.
By the way, Chris Temple has tweeted that Traorè has passed his medical and about to be confirmed.
So we'll get on to Traorè in a moment then, and hopefully we'll get some images on the screen for that as well. So I've gone for a transfer window of 7 out of 10 before deadline day, a season points total of 35, a heart of 17th, and a head league position of 18th. And we might change those predictions. You never know at the end of this stream. Matías Viña, then, guys, before we go on to him, actually, because he came from Roma, Aaron, another player we were interested in, Zaniolo, who clearly thought that we were too small for him, then ruined his own chances of playing football for the next 6 months, has now been effectively left to rot, I suppose, wanted to actually now play for Bournemouth last night, and the club said, sorry, we've gone for other targets. I actually think that will hold us in good stead in the future, to say that people might think we're small, but we mean business now.
Yeah, so it's been an ongoing saga, isn't it? When we first linked with him, I thought absolutely no chance. He's a player of great quality. He's had injury problems, but he's he's got a lot of quality about him and would be a fantastic signing. Then obviously, as we've all followed it, he clearly didn't want to come. He didn't bother to meet our board when they flew out to meet him in Italy. And then, the way he's been treated, obviously, is can't condone that. The way he's been treated by the Roma fans, breaking into his house, intimidating him, signs, and I'm not entirely sure what's been going on there. It's clearly something above what we've known, because it seems a very bizarre saga. The whole thing's just very, very strange. And then obviously, rather than rotting in the reserves, he then probably had a change of mind and thought, I better get a move on. So my first instinct was to tell him to do one, which is clearly what's happened. And then you kind of think a bit more, well, are we cutting our nose off to spite our face? Because, putting him in, adding him to what we've already bought would be unbelievable. And, I've seen, I don't know how likely it is, I've seen that Everton and Leeds are trying to get him now. So to let him go to a relegation rival, especially Everton, who are desperate to get anyone in at the moment, will obviously not be great, because we don't want to help any relegation rival out. So, but, Foley's obviously said we've spent enough money. So there's obviously a limit, despite being apparently no budget, but there is a limit, obviously, to some degree. So I can understand that. But yeah, I'm 50-50 with it. Half of me doesn't want to play about attitude, didn't really want to be here. You need someone who's up for the fight and wants to be here. 100% get that. The other half of me is like, he wants to come. He's a bloody good player. And let's face it, a centre midfielder who I just mentioned before is what we kind of need. The last piece of the jigsaw. So if he wants to come, we can afford him, do it. But obviously, we decided not to go down that route.
His teammate, John, who did want to come, he was on the bench at the weekend, so question marks were being asked. But that is Matías Viña, a left-back, someone who's 25, got experience, Palmeiras, Roma, not had many games this season, but again, brings a level of experience we have been lacking for cover at left-back. We know that Jordan Zamora's had to make the step up. I think personally, Jordan Zamora's done okay this season. I think he's better going forward. Sometimes there's questions about his defending, but you've proved actually statistically he's not that bad defensively. I think Jordan Zamora's got a great career ahead of him, but we can't expect too much. And to have him as our only left back all season just isn't good enough. And what Viña brings in is that competition. And it means that if Jordan Zamora does sort of performances drop a little bit, it's okay, because we've got someone in who's potentially in the mould of like a Charlie Daniels when you see his clips. I mean, I also say he looks a little bit like Diego Rico. If he is a bit like Diego Rico, I just hope he can cross the ball a little bit more accurately. But I like what I see with Viña.
Yeah, I haven't seen all that much of him as of yet. So I'm happy to go by your words that if we do get someone even in the middle of, in between the abilities of Charlie Daniels and Diego Rico, then I'm sure we'll get a decent few sets of games out of him. Now, obviously, this one's a loan with, I believe, if I remember seeing reported, there was an option to buy for 15 million euros, probably, even if it was, I believe it was 15 million euros. And I think that if you've got someone that's played at the top level in Italy, and if he proves that he can do it in the Premier League, 15 million euros for a 25-year-old centre back, left back that can play centre back is a snip, I think, really in the modern market in terms of the Premier League. So I think that's a really good deal, a sensible deal. And if he's got that attacking presence, then should fit in absolutely fine. And there's no doubts that left back has been that area that we looked at basically all season and just gone, how have we only got Jordan Zamora there? Nothing against Jordan Zamora, but I think that the club kind of looked at, well, Lloyd Kelly could play there, and I suppose Adam Smith could play there. We'll be all right. And the fact is that, you need particularly in the way the modern game is, you need fullbacks. You need specialist fullbacks that can do the job of a good fullback. And at the moment, with Adam Smith playing as defensively as he does, our only attacking impetus coming from fullback is Jordan Zamora. That is it. Mm-hmm. Unless Stacey comes on towards the end of the game at probably right mid, to be honest, in the way that he was. So yeah, vital that we got someone else in at left back that can do that position for us.
Do we believe he's going to, John, do you think he's going to start ahead of Jay-Z? I mean, is he brought in to start? He's obviously a seasoned international and got a lot of experience. So
I would say that probably against Brighton, I would say probably not. Although it depends on how he, it depends on what Gary Neal sees in training, or whether he thinks that maybe it's worthwhile to shove him straight in. I mean, away at Brighton is probably one of the hardest games of the season, outside of playing the top six. And, the weakness that we've got, that I think I've seen more recently of Zamora, is that he doesn't necessarily have the discipline to stay in position at times, is liable to push himself out and then not run back. And as much as there's good link-up play between him and Anthony, they are liable to lose the ball. And I think that it may well be looked at that it's worthwhile putting Viña in as someone that should have more experience, is more physical, has more ability. The only thing that he's lacking is familiarity with the team. But if he can get that and he can look good in training for the next 4 days, then I don't see why he wouldn't start. But it's a coin flip at the moment, I think, as to who starts at left back on Saturday, I think.
Daniel is Hamad TRAORE's agent, and he says that documents have been signed, all good to go. This one is coming in potentially around 30 million with add-ons. So when we get some images, hopefully before the end of this stream, we'll also
interesting. It's a loan.
Yeah, he's copy pasted that directly from Fabrizio. The
That's great work. It's great work.
Exactly. The thing that
keep it coming, Daniel.
The thing I'm interested in that obviously is that it's an initial loan with a mandatory buy option, which would be interesting to see. Is that still mandatory if we go down? Which would be an interesting one. That may well be a clause in it. But 30 million euros is not the, from what I've read previously, 30 million would be if he hit all his add-ons. That is not a flat 30 million and then add-ons on top. That is, if he hits all his add-ons, it'll total 30 million euros, which is just barely short of what I think was the total that we played for Jefferson Lerma. Because none of these, that's the interesting thing here, none of these deals so far actually breaks our transfer record. Jefferson Lerma at 25 million pounds, which is about 30.5 million euros, I believe, is still our record transfer. And none of the deals that we've brought in so far will break that yet. So that's an interesting one, that we're not being as outrageous as much as we're doing a lot of deals. We've not been as outrageous on one deal as maybe some might have expected we might be.
Whilst John brings up that little story about Jefferson Lerma, can I tell you a little story, guys, about Jefferson Lerma? So it was an open training session that we were having that we used to have with Eddie Howe. And we still do it now, actually, for like the junior Cherries. So I took my boy Owen along, and afterwards, normally they sort of come along the sort of front seats, don't they, of just inside the hoardings, and then you get some signatures, and players were coming along, and Jeff Mostyn got involved, guys. So he came up and he was signing Owen's autograph and he was getting a photo, and I said to him, look, the Jeff Lerma thing, it's been going on for weeks, are we going to get it done? He went, look, they want a little bit more money, but I will win. I said, Jeff Lerma will play in a Bournemouth shirt, I promise you, he said, but we're not going to completely give them everything that they want, but we'll meet them in the middle. And about 2 days later, Jeff Lerma was signed, and what a signing he's been. So, sort of whispered in my ear, but obviously probably another 10 fans heard it as well. And he probably told the same story to another 10 fans. So, anyway, there's a little interesting story there. Thanks, Jeff. Ambassador now for the club. Aaron, while we're talking about Traorè, 22 years old, another player that's going to bring some pace to our side because we have desperately needed it. Had some very good numbers last season. Numbers this season, about 6 starts in Serie A, 11 appearances altogether, no goals, 3 assists. But his numbers last season were pretty good. What I liked about Traorè, I might try and show some stuff on SofaScore in a minute, is he's got decent numbers across the board. So he's got numbers at right wing. He's got numbers at attacking midfielder central. He's got numbers at left wing. Versatile, flexible. Something Philip Billing isn't. I like Philip Billing. I think he's come on leaps and bounds, but I always find Philip Billing is not a versatile player and causes us a bit of an issue when we're trying to play different formations. This player looks like he can play anywhere across the front, really.
Yeah, anywhere across the front three and deeper, from the sounds of it. He can also, he can pick the ball up. I was talking about a central midfielder as well, and he can pick the ball up centrally and run at them, run at players. Looks like he's got low center of gravity. Obviously, he's not the biggest, but he's again very, very quick. And as you say, like for such a young guy, he's very highly rated. His stats have been good in previous seasons, and this one really does excite me. I think this has probably come about with Jackson. I would imagine with Jackson falling apart. This was someone. But his stats are actually better, and he's just as in the same age bracket. So yeah, really exciting, as I said, because he can play anywhere across the front three. So if Ouattara's carrying a knock, then he can go on the right, or if Semenyo's out or Jayden Anthony's not playing well, he goes on the left. And he can play, as I said, in that Phil Billing role, attacking midfielder. So yeah, really good options. I mean, and just going back to that loan, I mean, I was hoping he'd be a permanent signing, because whatever happens, then he'll be ours for the next few years, and real talent. So I do hope that if we get relegated, it's not suddenly he suddenly disappears along with Viña, and then we're kind of stuck back to where we were. But hopefully it's he's here for the long term, because I'm really looking forward to seeing him play. And again, it's kind of pace across all areas of the pitch, and that's what defenders hate.
John, don't know if you're worried about his numbers this season. As I said, no goals, but previous seasons he's had really good numbers across the front there. Heat map showing him mainly on the left, which would work quite well, as we know that Dango mainly plays off the right.
Yes, and obviously SofaScore there shows that it seems that he's actually mainly performs down the middle, but does one, or is it mainly left wing, but occasionally does go down the middle. Either way. Yes, Dango Ouattara, we've played him so far off the right, and Traorè is right-footed, so it makes sense for the way that the modern winger plays, is that they tend to play on the opposite side and come into the middle of the pitch, which is great, because you want to take a man on and try and get a goal. The interesting thing you talk about stats is that, yes, previously, obviously last season he scored 7 goals, if I remember looking up on FBref. This season he hasn't scored yet, but he does have 3 assists.
Yes.
And the thing I would say is that I mentioned in terms of we've struggled to get goals, and that's partly due to maybe not having enough backup up front, which we're certainly bringing in those goal scorers. But what about the creativity? It's all good and well having players that have historically scored goals, but you need to get the ball to them. And if all we did was bring in goal scorers, then I would still have significant issues in terms of the creativity department. But if someone is able to combine both, as Ouattara is very capable as a provider and a goal scorer, Traorè maybe last season was very much a goal scorer, but this season he may not have scored, but he has provided. So it's important that you've got someone that can do that. If you can't bring in a purely creative force, then it's better to have attackers that can do both. So I think that's really positive.
That's correct. 7 goals last season, 2 assists, and that's his hot heat map from the Serie A in 21-22. Again, very red over the left-hand side. Thank you to 66 of you that are currently joining us on this stream. Do hit the like button. Do support the channel. Subscribe if you are new. Sometimes I really struggle to get that word subscribe out, but I got it out. And I do want to let you know that you can support the channel by becoming a member if you wish to, or just simply one-off donations. All you need to do is go to buymeacoffee.com/Cherries Red Army. Thank you to all our current monthly members. Supporting the channel, pay for our admin costs, our equipment, helps us do these types of streams. Details should also be in the description. So if you want to head over, donate to the channel, you can do after this stream. And what we wanted to do in this stream, guys, is try and build the best AFC Bournemouth 11 from the squad that we're potentially going to have once it's all registered. And I think we'll start that very, very soon. But this will give you an opportunity now to hit that like button. We'll get a virtual pitch up and we'll start to see what this Bournemouth team could look like, maybe against Brighton on Saturday. I say potentially against Brighton, guys, because it might be too soon for some of these players. But look, what we want to do is have a look at the squad. We're going to assume that Traorè is in. We know we're just waiting for those images. We know Zabarnyi's in as well. I put Neto in goal. We'll start to look at the defence, and I'll put some positions in the chat. So I want you to get involved, the fans that are currently watching, in the chat. So please do get involved. Guys, let's just go straight over to right-hand side. Do we really need to speak about this? It doesn't look like we're bringing another right back in. I mean, Aaron, I think there is a case to have a new right back next season. I think we can just about get by at right back. Jack Stacey is probably going to struggle to play in the Premier League moving forward. Fredericks is a weird signing, but he was free, so that was fine. Okay, then Adam Smith is obviously on the other side of 30 now. But is it Smudge? that goes in at right back?
Yeah, well, I mean, we are loaded with right backs. We've got 3 of them. Fredericks, I don't think, obviously he's massively injury prone, and I don't think we've been impressed with him. Jack Stacey tries his damnedest, and always 100% effort, and does put in a good performance every now and then, but for me isn't quite up to the standard. Adam Smith clearly is, but again, he's the wrong side of 30, and as John's already mentioned, doesn't necessarily bomb forward as much as perhaps we should want to. So interestingly enough, again, sorry, just it is connected, but Temple and McAdam have both said that it looks likely the one more player who hasn't even been mentioned yet is to come in tonight on top of the 6 you've already bought. And I'm wondering if that player is either going to be a right back or a central midfielder, because they're the 2 positions I think we probably need now. Because obviously we were linked with this Oseo guy from Fenerbahce, which obviously didn't materialise. People have been talking about Tarek Lamptey, who Brighton are quite happy to let go. So I'd love to see one of them come in, because I think we do need speed at right back. But you're probably right. If we've strengthened other areas of the defence, Adam Smith is more than capable to see this season out. If we need be, I'm a big fan of him. But yeah, just a couple of weaknesses in his game, which naturally come with his age. But other than that, out of the 3, he's the number 1 at the moment. Yeah.
John, if we have a better attitude going into games now with more attacking impetus, we can probably get by with Adam Smith to the end of the season, in my opinion.
Yeah, absolutely. You need, as I think I've mentioned previously, Anthony does not work if he doesn't have a left back bombing on and supporting him and providing decoy runs. On the right, you need a player like, well, possibly Ouattara, but certainly someone like Tavernier, who is able to do all the work on his own and take on a man without the additional support, because Adam Smith is just not going to get forward. It's a shame, because if you've only got to look at the cross he put in for Kiefer Moore's goal against second goal against Spurs. Like, he's still capable of putting in a really good cross, but he's just not going to bomb up and down the pitch anymore. And it's an area that we really can upgrade. I think it's the next position I think that we need to be looking at upgrading in the future. But yeah, Stacey I like, but he has too many flaws to his game, unfortunately. And Fredericks, if you look at the bottom of the SofaScore and the team's individual rankings, Fredericks counts second from bottom in terms of ratings from SofaScore, which is not the be all and end all, but it certainly passes my eye test. I think he's been pretty awful for the most part playing for us. So yeah, we're stacked at right back, but that doesn't necessarily mean we've got quality there. So for the now, it's definitely Smith, because he's basically the only option.
Come on, John. He had good 45 minutes at the City Ground. Anyway,
let's move back. Wasn't it?
Let's go back to the football pitch. Right, guys, you're going to get about 1 minute in the chat to put your prediction in if you want to play a part in this. So let's go to first centre-back. I like a right-footed centre-back, don't I, John? No, look, we've just brought in Ilya Zabarnyi. I think he will play next to Adam Smith, right centre-back. Aaron, who are you going to pick to play right centre-back?
I think we're talking sort of, whether it's not necessarily for Brighton, but going forward,
not
the
necessarily
majority of the season. Brighton. Yeah, for me, he'll have to be. He'll have to start. Zabarnyi. I still don't know how to say his name, but anyway, Zabarnyi, whatever.
I think we've got it, Zabarnyi.
The Ukrainian,
John, Zabarnyi. Stevens is going to be knocking on the door. What's he ever done wrong?
He's played for Southampton. That's what he's done wrong. Yeah, Stevens was always brought in as backup, and that's what he will continue to be this season. I did see some rumors on Twitter about Southampton looking to possibly bring him back, but I can't see why they would bother. It's not like that he's going to do anything other than be sitting on the bench for Southampton either. But yeah, he's probably fifth choice because again, I don't think he's ahead of. I wouldn't have Stevens ahead of Mepham because Mepham's has been more consistent, but he has played more games. And we had this discussion earlier. It's harsh on Mepham, but you bring in a 21 to 24 million pound centre back that's played 24 international, has a 24 international caps, has played in Europe. You play him.
Omid's gone early. He's gone to Zabarnyi and Mepham. Sean's also said Mepham as well. David Codron's in the chat. Thanks for joining us. What's he put about Stevens? Nor Stevens or Mepham have done anything wrong, but you don't spend 25 million. Is that what you just said, John? Maybe 24 million on a centre back and sit him on the bench. Absolutely.
He's read my mind. Yeah, David.
Stu's also going in with a back four.
To do that, but hopefully not.
Yeah, exactly.
A lot of you have gone really early with the back four. Look, we're working our way across. Look, there they're in. So this is not the be all and end all yet for Mepham, because there's another position here. Okay, Zabarnyi in at right back. So this opens up a really interesting question now, guys. Rumours out there yesterday, don't know if they're true, that Kelly might have picked up another injury. We know that some of the fan base has been on Kelly's back a bit. I'm someone who keeps believing in Kelly. I don't dispute some of the frustrations around the pace of his passing and some of his decision making. Is he better at left back? But we know he doesn't want to play at left back. Kelly's a captain. Kelly is currently the club captain. Who do I... Do you know what the thing is? I don't mind two right-footed centre-backs, John. I just don't like two left-footed ones. So I think I would go with Mepham, you know. Aaron, I'm going to come to you first. I think, because now I don't want to put Mepham on the bench because I think he's been outstanding. I really think I'm going to go Mepham and Zabarnyi, but there'd be a big call for Gary O'Neill to make. That's your club captain you're putting on the bench potentially week in, week out.
It's a very difficult one. Meps probably deserves it out of all the other defenders to have a place in the team. He has played left-sided before, but he's not as good. We've spoken about this before. I know probably we'd rather have the right-left combination. If I'm thinking what Gary O'Neill's going to be doing, I think Lloyd Kelly's in there if he's fit, because he just will be. But, we mentioned about spending money. We spent, 10 million on Senesi. And whilst he hasn't set the world alight, he has had some good moments too. And I said, he hasn't been all bad. It's a difficult one. I really don't know I would put Kelly in there because I think that's what's going to happen. And we've got that extra pace at the back, which we know is important. And if Kelly does get back to full fitness, because, to be fair to him, the first couple of games back when he was very rocky, he had been out a long time. If he gets back to his full fitness and with his recovery ability, then I'd have him in there. But, look, there's going to be injuries, suspensions. The others will get their chance. And, that's why you need a squad. But I would start with Kelly on that left-hand side, I think.
It's not even obvious, John, in the chat. So I'm going to put this on you, mate. I'm going to put this on you, John. Kelly, as I said, I think I have stuck up for Kelly quite a bit, and I think I still will. He does have that recovery pace. He is currently club captain. There are still fans very much in there supporting him. There are fans that don't want Mepham on the bench. Come on, fill this second centre-back alongside Zabarnyi for us, John.
This is a difficult one because based on what we've had before with Mepham playing at left centre-back, I wouldn't have him anywhere near playing left centre-back because it's weird because as a centre-back, playing on the left side as opposed to the right side is actually quite a decent shift in terms of understanding your spacing and your the positions that you're meant to take up. It's really like, it's not FIFA. You can't just put a right centre back over the left side and he'll be fine and do exactly the same with everything. When was the last time we saw Mepham play at left centre back? I think he got a red card, didn't he?
Is that Brentford?
I think that might have been the last time. He may have played once or twice. Yeah, it would have been a Brentford. He might have played once or twice after that in the Championship left centre-back. But I think, to be fair, he barely played for us in the Championship last season, did he? So I think the last time he played a left centre-back, he got the red card against Brentford. I would not have him at left centre-back. And part of the reason for that is also because as much as I don't know what Zabarnyi's like... the important thing is I don't know what Zabarnyi's like in possession. Because what you've got at the moment, in whether you've got Senesi or Kelly at left centre-back, you have more of a ball player. And then you have Mepham, who has been, and it's been the key to his success this season, he has been utterly no-nonsense. If the ball's got anywhere near danger, that's ending up in row Z, which I've absolutely loved about Mepham's game this season. And if you put Mepham on the left-hand side, he can continue to play that get-rid-of-it style. But if Zabarnyi's not necessarily much of a ball player, then that suddenly shifts a lot of the impetus to start playing a bit more to Mepham, and that's not going to help his game, and it's not going to help us at all. I think having a left footer on the left, it provides a much more balance, and I would have, to be honest, it doesn't really matter whether it's Kelly or Senesi for me. I, this season, have preferred Senesi, but I think the club captain aspect kind of pushes Kelly to the front of the list, but I personally have found Senesi to be the better centre-back this year. So if I was to put it down now, I'd have Senesi. And as much as he made a couple mistakes recently, in terms of, obviously against Burnley and I think in another game as well, I think he's been, right up there with Meppen as one of the better performers this season. I would keep Senesi there.
I'm going to say this now. I don't actually think I've said this at all this season. I'm still not convinced by Senesi. I think there is a defender in there I was very excited by. I think he's had some good days. I know there was a game that he played to the right of the centre backs, which I felt very uncomfortable about. And the turn, there was I think a player got behind him. It might have been the Burnley game. He was very uncomfortable. But it was before that. I'm not completely convinced by Senesi yet. I'm not writing him off, and I think he can become a big player. And he's still trying to get used to the country and the league, potentially. We know he had a tough day against Arsenal in one of his opening debuts. So I'm not convinced yet by Senesi. I don't think he's rapid pace. But I think there's a defender in there, and I think he has shown previously at previous clubs that he's got aggression. So I think he'll come good, but I just thought I'm going to throw it out there. I don't think I've said anything about Senesi at all season. So interesting coming in here. I put Lerma and Cook above, by the way, just to move this on a little bit. But left back then. So interestingly, in the chat, let us know who you think will play at left back. I suppose this all comes down to, Aaron, how much we learn about Viña early doors, because Jay-Z, I think, will very much get the love initially, but at some point we're going to want to see Matías and see what he can offer. But I suppose it's Jay-Z at the start, isn't it?
I don't know, because let's face it, there's been times when Jay-Z's he's been the only left back at the club and he still hasn't been chosen, right? So again, if I'm thinking what Gary O'Neill would do, and I'm not necessarily against this because I haven't seen Viña yet, but if Viña has, as you know, he's 25-year-old, have played in Europe again, played in the Europa final, conference final, played under Jose Mourinho. This guy is a decent left back, can also play centre back, but let's leave it there for now. Then, yeah, I mean, look, again, this goes back to what I said earlier about the sentimentality of our players. Love Jay-Z, probably one of our best players going forward. But we are where we are. If Viña has been brought in as an upgrade, then he plays for me. Again, and this is where we have to progress. This is where we have to get out of this mentality of, we can't drop Jay-Z and Jaden Anthony. Well, you can if you've got full internationals taking their place. It's excitement of a buzzing with my phone. You can if you have internationals taking place. Now, there's another discussion. We might have another video of, Jay-Z and Jaden Anthony's contracts running out. If they're not going to be playing, then what does that mean? They're going to lose. We'll lose them for nothing, and then they're going to go. We won't have them if we go down. Blah blah blah. Which is a big concern of mine. But here and now, if Viña and someone else deserves to play down that left-hand side when they come in, so for me, Viña plays.
Viña plays for Aaron. David says, John, if Anthony doesn't play, we're probably going to find that out in about 10 minutes' time. Does that hurt Jay-Z's chance of being preferred over Viña? And you're on mute.
Whoops, sorry. I muted myself when I thought I was unmuting. I don't think so. And that's purely because Anthony has been picked in a few games when Jay-Z was not getting a shout. And that completely hampered Anthony's performances, in my opinion. I really think that you'll get the best out of Anthony by playing an attacking fullback behind him on that left-hand side. Whereas with Zamora, you will get more out of Zamora by playing Anthony on the left because they have such a good connection between the two of each other. However, Gary O'Neill has shown that doesn't necessarily come into his thinking, and he has played Anthony without Zamora, and he has played Zamora when Anthony hasn't played. So I think in terms of if you want to get the best out of those two players, you play them together. But in terms of what we're looking at is our best squad going forward, is Anthony necessarily going to be getting a start anymore anyway? Particularly when you've got the new signings coming in, depending on how soon Brooks comes back, depending on how soon Tavernier comes back. Anthony's a player that I want to keep in the same way Zamora is a player that I want to keep. But in terms of are they now first 11 players, I would argue neither of them are. And I certainly think that, if we're looking at improving the team, which I think every Bournemouth fan would agree we need to do, why wouldn't you play someone with the experience and quite clearly ability of Matías Viña?
Dan Short says in the chat, any other outgoings outside of Kilkenny? Doesn't look like it, Dan, but we'll keep our eye on everything. Matt's also said about having Adam Smith as captain. So just for you, Matt, he is captain on that football pitch for you. Now, just pushing along up the pitch then, Lerma and Cook, both fit. We're imagining that everyone's fit and pickable. It's Lerma and Cook, isn't it?
I'm not 100% sure on Cook, to be honest with you. Depends where they see... Depends where we see Traorè playing. It actually depends where Tavernier will fit into this team, because a lot of Middlesbrough fans would say central midfield is actually his best position, because if we got players now who can play in that front three behind Dom, then maybe Tavernier can play that position, because he's up and down the pitch like energy like you've never seen before. So, and that's where he's supposed to be great. So I honestly would not say, well, first of all, he's injured and he could be injured for a long time anyway. We don't know anything about that. I would say he's not a shoo-in.
Not a shoe-in, but do you know what? Let's move up. Let's just keep Lerma and Cook in there, because there could be a few variations to this. But let's just go ahead. We're expecting Ouattara to play off the right, guys. We're not going to pull Ouattara out the team. He was, man of the match performance, and we hope he can deliver more performances like that. John?
I would say that as things stand, yes, Ouattara would be in that position, but I would say that Tavernier could also quite easily be in that position as well. But certainly what we've seen so far, and given Tavernier's injury that we don't know how long he's out for, I'm perfectly happy for Ouattara to be there.
Right, Cam in the chat. Central attacking midfielder. Right. I think I want Tavernier in there. I think we've spoken about Traorè having good numbers across that front, but predominantly off the left, when you look at his better numbers, I think Tavernier can play in that central role. When I spoke to the Borough podcast right at the start of the season, they said he's really effective in central. We know he's played off the right. We know he's a good ball carrier. But where does Philip Billing come into this, Aaron?
I'm not sure he does right now, because I mean, Tav looks like he's fit, John, by the way, for Saturday. He's been in full training. Dom hasn't been seen. So I think Dom might be some weeks off, a couple of weeks, hopefully not too long. But I think Tav will be fit. But again, we're talking about guess going forward. So if he's not fit for Saturday, I think he's very, very close. So I think that's a good shout, because I think if we're not going to play him a bit deeper, as I just mentioned, Tav has to get in this team, and I think I got a feeling who we know who's going to go on the left. So I mean, I would think Tavernier, they're all interchangeable, because Traorè can play across the three. Tavernier certainly can play left, right, and centre. And I think Ouattara has also played on the left before in his time, and centrally. So, if we're talking Ouattara, Tav, and Traorè, all three of them can play in any of those three positions. But I think Tav there, unleash him. He's got the ability to dribble. He's got, a shot on him, and playing more centrally, I think that's a good shout. Phil Billing has for too long really had no competition in that area. So, step up and show us more. But I would put Tav in there at the moment.
I love that, John, that they're interchangeable and that you can change things up in a game. I mean, how many technical touchline battles has Gary O'Neill won? None. But if he can swap Dango Ouattara over with Traorè, or Tav can go out there, that gives us so much of a more dimension to our game, surely.
Yeah, I agree with you in terms of putting Tavernier in the 10 in this setup, because of the changing, the shifting that can happen across that front three behind the striker. Tavernier has played across the left and the right. Ouattara has shown in his previous that he's capable of doing the same. Traorè has done on the left and played down the middle. I would say I don't think you get the best out of Tavernier in the number 10 slot. I think when people in Middlesbrough have talked about how good he has been in the middle, they've been talking as a number 8, not as a number 10, as part of the kind of formation that we were playing last year under Parker, where we had Billing playing as that sort of very box-to-box number 8, and Lerma was also sort of doing that as well, although he was a bit more defensive. I think Tavernier was doing a lot of very good work with Middlesbrough as the right-sided number 8 in a 4-3-3. And I think that the only thing is that putting him as sort of more exclusively as a 10 and playing a 4-2-3-1 in sort of the formation that we currently got and as we have been playing, I do think it still leaves us outnumbered in midfield, as much as I think Tavernier will work hard more, works harder defensively. As much as Billing, I think, has been underrated in his defensive work, I think the position that he's played has sort of taken some of that responsibility away from him. Whereas Tavernier has shown incredible ability as a in terms of his defensive work rate, and has played as essentially as a wing back for a third of this season. So I prefer Tavernier wide, and I think you'll get more out of him playing him wide. But I think you kind of have to get him in the team at the moment, somewhere. And with the new players coming in, I think the number 10 is probably the vacant slot as things stand, in terms of if we think the Billing maybe has been too out of form recently.
Omid is saying that the Traorè deal is done, so we'll wait for that to pop up in a moment. We'll just finish this predicted lineup that we could have week in, week out, potentially going forward. Very quick mention, Aaron, for Ryan Christie, who put in an excellent effort against Nottingham Forest. For all his running, for all his endeavour, my problem with Ryan Christie is he will not deliver numbers that keeps us in the Premier League.
Yeah, I mean, arguably, it was one of his best performances. I've always said, he certainly in the Premier League, he has not got the pace to play on the wing. He just doesn't. So for me, he was quite good in that little pocket, picking up the ball. He's got an eye for a pass. He picks up good areas, Christie, but he's slow. I'm not going to mention his shooting ability. Yeah, I mean, but again, a valuable member of the squad, and if we were to go down, then clearly a reasonably good part to play. Although if he keeps most of these players, then maybe not. I don't know. I mean, it'd be a hell of a championship team if we go down. Yeah, look, we need a squad. We said, we've talked about Billing coming out of a team, Christie coming out of a team, potentially Jaden Anthony coming out of a team. But this is now we're going to have a strong bench as opposed to 3 or 4 youth players on the bench. So, this is what it's all about. And as I said, there's going to be bumps and bruises along the way. So all valuable members. I mean, it's worth noting, I think Mark McAdam said with Traorè coming in, because as I said, Zabarnyi doesn't count because he's under 21, we will have to shift someone else out, whether that's Dembele or another one. And if his 7th person comes in, who we still haven't mentioned, although Alex Crook thinks that isn't going to happen, but Mark McAdam seems to think it still might, then someone else has to shift out. And then we're going to start talking about who's in the 25-man squad. Junior Stanislas, for me, has to come out. The big question over David Brooks, but again, maybe that's for another day, maybe not for now.
Aaron, that was the worst pronunciation so far of Zabarnyi.
Do you know what it is? Do you know what it is? It's a very old-fashioned dessert in an Italian restaurant, but Zabaglione was my favorite dessert. And I keep saying Zabaglione. I know it's not really legal anymore because it's raw eggs, but I used to love that back in the day.
No more academy bench, I think that Wing is pointing out here. Look, let's quickly, I've filled up the pitch because I want to talk about Gary O'Neill and what he's going to do moving forward and how he's going to get points on the board. I've filled up the pitch, John. Traorè off the left, Solanke up top. For too much this season, we know Solanke's currently injured, but we're talking about this when everyone's fit or in a ideal world and pickable. Solanke, for too long this season, has played out of position. He's played too deep. He's trying to do too much. We need Solanke in and behind. We need him between the lines. We need him in the box, and we need him to score goals. That's how we're going to stay in the Premier League, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And with Solanke out, it has massively affected our ability to build up play, and it's also affected the mentality of the players. I think in terms of their willingness to just whack it to the big guy up top and hope that he holds on to it, despite the fact that we've been terrible at actually getting players near Kiefer Moore. It's been a recipe for disaster, which is why we haven't been scoring any goals. So Solanke coming back is vital. And as you mentioned, we need him doing A, B, C, D, X, Y, and Z because he's capable of doing it all. I told you before, I think if Solanke, if we absolutely had to, Solanke could do a job at right back. He literally could do anything because he's just so able to do all the aspects of the game that you need him to do. His defensive work rate, his attacking work rate, his pressing, his holding the ball up, his dribbling, which I think has improved massively over the last sort of 12 months. His versatility is so important, particularly when you look at the players that we've now got and the genuine pace we are adding to this team, which has been such a lacking aspect to our side. And you know, when we've had Christie that doesn't have much pace, you've got Anthony who's not necessarily known for his pace and doesn't try and get beyond quite in the same way as other players. You've got Traorè, you've got Tavernier probably, you've got Billing has done it in the past, you've got Ouattara, all players that if Solanke comes deep, they'll bomb on. If Solanke wants to, he can turn and he can also run the channels. It's having that versatility, making the opposition defense have to second guess what he's going to do. It's just we need him back to be able to get the most out of our attacking play. But you know, we need everyone else to be able to do their jobs around him, because too often we've played in front of a defence and caused them no issues. We need to really push on with a fast attacking play that I hope that we produce more of, more counter-attacks and more shots on goal.
It's starting to look a little bit sexy, Aaron. Don't know if that's the right word, but it is a bit Football Manager. We know that we're probably not going to be able to get every player that we want on the pitch for different reasons, for different tactics. And we know that we're going to talk about Gary O'Neill in a moment. Wings talking about potential partnerships. Look, some players don't hit the ground running. They've got to adapt. We're in a situation where we need to pick up points. But look, what we've put on the screen there is a very good side that should create chances if it has the right objective. And if we take those chances, we might win a few football matches.
Yes, I mean, on paper it looks really exciting, doesn't it? You know, as we said, Dom being back, I would imagine Semenyo will play until Dom's back, because I think again it adds a bit more pace and trickery than Kiefer Moore does. But I think, yeah, I mean that really does excite me. I think there's pace all over the pitch, and that attacking talent, we can actually get in behind teams, you know, however good they are. Yeah, I mean, that really does. You know, I mean, Wing makes a good point. Will they all get in there, or they need time to bed in? We haven't really got time for them to bed in. You see, well, no. You know, that's the problem. We need points, and I just think, I know Eddie was one for very much takes weeks and weeks to learn the Bournemouth way. That Gary O'Neill might have a different approach and throw most of them in. I would, because we haven't been performing and we haven't been getting any results for the last 13 or 14 games. So yeah, let's see it, and I can't wait to see that team at Brighton or most of them playing, because you know, if we can see goals, which we're going to do, you've always got a chance. You know, the last couple of games we just haven't looked like we're going to score. We're just wondering how are we going to score. But with those players on the pitch, one moment of brilliance, you know, ball over the top, getting in behind. We've got a lot of ability on that pitch, and that's with Semenyo not even starting, you know, in that lineup, being on the bench, and Jadon Anthony coming off the bench, and you know, others as well.
Let's just pop over to Alex Crook on Twitter then. About 24 minutes ago, he said Traorè to AFC Bournemouth is a done deal. Should be formally announced shortly. Might grab it on this stream if we're lucky enough. That will be the last incoming of the window. They scoured the emergency loan market, but not much out there after Tottenham blocked Oliver Skipp leaving. So we'll just hold fire to see what happens with that one. Let's talk about the elephant in the room. Hit the like button, subscribe to Cherries Red Army as we do talk about the elephant in the room then, guys. It's all great stuff. We've finally turned up. We've arrived. We always wait to deadline day anyway, if we go by the last couple of seasons. It's great having all these players, and looking at that pitch that we just saw a minute ago, we have some real talent. And we know that there's probably 4, 5, 6 Premier League teams this season that are not great. So there's always been a half a chance for us to stay up, John. But we do know we've probably got, well, we have the most inexperienced head coach in the whole of the Premier League. And he's got the toughest task in the Premier League. For everything that we've done today, are we guaranteed? Well, we're not guaranteed anything, but are we still on an uphill battle because the guy that's leading that team to try and get points on the board?
I think we are. You know, it's just. I think there have been some very disgruntled Bournemouth fans that have been talking about, giving, what was it? Assembling, putting £100 million worth into the club and then giving it to a PE teacher, or things like that. It's like I've seen a few different pretty good analogies about recipes. As like, which would you rather have? Would you rather have a 5-year-old cooking you a filet mignon, or have Gordon Ramsay cooking you a beans on toast? It's just like, one's the far better meal, but you'd still have the better cook. So it's Gary O'Neill, in terms of, if you look at the club structure as a whole, Gary O'Neill is the most limiting factor. And it's just fact, unfortunately, because if you have someone that has that little experience, no matter how highly he may be rated in coaching circles, it's not just the fact that it's Gary O'Neill, it's the fact that who's the people behind him. I still don't believe that either Cooper or Elphick got named as assistant manager. So he's a manager without an assistant, and the two coaches that are working directly under him also have no experience. So that is the big thing. Like, even if you were to bring in, pick a random name out of the hat. Like I say, random name. Bring in someone like, I don't know, Harry Redknapp, as some sort of backstaff experience. He never would.
Or Joe Jordan.
That's true. Actually, bringing someone like Joe Jordan, just as someone with plenty of years in the game that can actually be a voice in his ear to give him some advice somewhere. Because at the moment, I don't think that I'm going to automatically write off Bournemouth because we've got Gary O'Neill, particularly as now we've got a squad that's very much capable of staying up. It's just a matter of, is he able to consistently get the best out of this team? And at the moment, he has not shown that. So we can only hope that either very quickly he proves that he can, in which case I wish him all the best and I really hope we stay up, or things fall apart very quickly and someone makes a decision that this needs changing. Because that's the only two ways this really is going to go in terms of the positive direction. Either it's very bad in the first couple of weeks and the manager changes, or we take a dramatic upward trend and Gary O'Neill actually shows what he can do. So either, if neither of those two scenarios hit, then we're in a bad spot.
I'm going to sort of compare this, Aaron. It felt a little bit like Jason Tindall when we didn't really offload too many players, and it was like, it's okay, we don't need someone who's got lots of experience, we can just put Jason Tindall in there because Danjuma's going to score us back into the Premier League. And when it didn't happen, we had to go for Scott Parker, who had experience of getting a team out of the Championship, which he did again. It feels very similar. Now, I don't know if he's still got his job because we're worried about how we look as a club having 3 head coaches in one season, or if he's still in a job because we've now given him £60 million worth of players and he should have enough to keep us up with the talent he's now got at his disposal.
I don't know is the honest answer to that, because look, I mean, it's no secret. I never wanted him to get the permanent job, and I've still baffled every match. Well, that's why he got it. And after Burnley and certainly after Forest, I thought 2 opportunities to maybe reset and admit it wasn't the right appointment. And as John said, the baffling thing, Jason Tindall got given Graham Jones, and Jonathan Woodgate got given Joe Jordan. We're the only club in the 92 without an assistant manager, and Sean Cooper and Tommy Elphick. I mean, it's, as I said before, it's a League One setup in a Premier League, and now the imbalance is so ridiculous because we've spent 60-70 million pounds on some hopefully fantastic players, and it's just a weird situation. As John said, it's like giving a 5-year-old the best cut of Wagyu beef. I mean, it's weird, but they're clearly backing him for now, because he would have gone earlier because results have been atrocious. And the fans, certainly in the recent games, a section of the fans have actually been open about it. I think many more feel it, but open about it. But now we're in a situation where we're very excited again because we've just signed some great players, and then I've certainly been given a massive lift. And I want Gary O'Neill to succeed. If he does keep us up this season, happen again. If he does keep us up this season, I personally would still think he's not the right man next season for the job, because the Foley project seems to be, we can all see where it seems to be heading and what direction it seems to be heading in, and it doesn't quite fit with that progress which we're going to make. But that's a story for another day. If he keeps us up, we'll be delighted, and then we'll worry about that after that. As John said, if results don't improve with the money we've spent, then when will they pull the trigger? Because they've had opportunities too, and we've got games against Man City and Liverpool and Arsenal in a row coming up soon. And would anyone get results in those games? And then we're suddenly into deep into nearly April. So it's a difficult one. But I think for now he is where he is, and I've made my feelings clear. But he's now got the tools at his disposal, I guess, to see. And the question is whether it's those players that will now get results for us or the manager, because tactical astuteness, awareness, and everything else that goes with being an experienced manager, not necessarily a top class manager, but just an experienced manager and a management team, is so much in football. You couldn't put me in charge of Manchester City, and then they do well. So yeah, look, but for now I think we wait and see, because for now today it's all about the players, and hopefully they can make a big impact.
I think the moment's gone, Mark. I think we probably should have pulled the trigger about 4 weeks ago, giving us a chance against Brentford and Forest. I think we got to just ride this storm out now, potentially. But
can I just cut in, because I think I said this to you yesterday, Kirk. Sean Dyche came in at Everton, someone who I didn't initially want at Bournemouth, but probably a few weeks ago I would have taken in our situation. I watched his kind of opening speeches to the Everton fans, and like Sean Dyche is what you get. He's organised. He knows what he's talking about. He's got experience. As of now, I don't think Everton have signed anyone, or that they are really struggling to get anyone in the door, and their fans are going absolutely ballistic. Whereas Gary O'Neill's been massively backed with some quality players.
Yeah.
Now let's see, out of the two clubs, as this is what John said earlier, this is the test. Sean Dyche with limited tools, an experienced manager, or Gary O'Neill with a plethora of new tools at his disposal. Let's see who stays up, because if Everton stay up at our expense, then that's your answer. An experienced manager makes a big difference.
And what I would say as well is that, saying that he's got a few games to go now is like, I agree with Aaron. It's like, it really, the whole thing was that we ended up with seemingly Bielsa or O'Neill.
Yeah.
And it really was, if those are your answers, you asked the wrong damn question. It really was like, there was clearly, they must have had other names, because you don't spend 12 weeks getting 2 names, and those are the only ones that get leaked. Those are just ones they felt comfortable leaking, was Bielsa. But you clearly weren't looking hard enough, because even if we don't know the names, there are names out there. You've only got to look at Ren, the guy that's doing a fantastic job there. Doesn't have his coaching licenses yet. He's getting fined. The club's getting fined every time he appears as a manager. But he's 12 unbeaten now, just nicked a point off PSG. And he came from the Belgian. He came from the Belgian league. Like, you can find strong, even if he was a complete unknown that I don't think we would have brought in. You can find good managing talent from other clubs. You just need to be looking in the right places, and they're paid to do that. So, I hope that they are doing their due diligence on a bunch of other managers as we speak.
Have to be,
in case things don't work out in the next 3 to 4 weeks, because it really is. If we don't get a significant turnaround, and this is not an easy set of fixtures, believe me, coming up, but there needs to be an uptick in more than just performances before we look at changing the manager.
Yeah, I think there should have been some due diligence and an alternative plan weeks and weeks and weeks ago, but we were focusing on trying to improve the squad maybe. Right, guys, I'm going to want to ask you for a number in a moment. Ian says 7 wins needed, gents. Very hard ask with our record this season. Sorry, don't see it. 21 points we definitely need from 18 games to give us a good chance. That'll get us to 38. That's the sort of magic number in the Premier League. We did those predictions, John and Aaron, at the start before transfer deadline day. You've done your heart. Your heart's always going to keep us up, but your head, we all put ourselves in the relegation zone. So after a busy day, 2 signings. We assume Traorè is completely done. We're waiting for the club to announce it. Where are you at now, Aaron? Head. And if you want to go optimistic, I'm fine with that.
Yeah, sorry, just tweet update. Chris Temple, the indoor at the Vitality Stadium isn't quite locked shut yet. As we've been saying on the radio, no guarantees, but don't turn the lights out yet. So I assume one more maybe other than Traorè. But even if there's not one more, it's been a very good window for us. Am I more optimistic? I mean, looking at that team we put on the paper, I'm optimistic. So, but there are what I would call winnable games. We got home games left against West Ham, Leeds, Fulham. And that's really it outside the top 7 or 8, I think, maybe one other. But it's going to be going to places like Wolves, Leicester, Southampton, clearly, and Villa, and trying to get something. So with the armory at our disposal now, I do fancy it's more of a goal threat. So I'm gonna end on an optimistic note and say my heart will win out and we're going to come 17th. But I'm not sure if we're going to get 21 points, but I'm also not sure if Everton, Southampton, or Wolves will get that many either. Yeah, if I'm being honest.
I'm always going to believe. I'm going to watch Gary O'Neill with a keen eye. I want to see a more attacking, more proactive. Let's be more on the front foot when we can. Sure, we're going to concede a lot of possession. That will always be the case, but we need to do more going forward, and we need to give ourselves a chance. We need to hunt in packs, John. Looking at the league table, which is not that because that's Alex Crook's Twitter, but looking at the league table, I'm going to throw another name in there. And I do agree with Aaron. I think Sean Dyche gives Everton a very good chance of staying up. I think Sean Dyche should have come into us 4 weeks ago, but they haven't added. Southampton, I think, will go if I'm going to keep us up. Wolves might be okay with their new manager. I think I predicted Leeds to go down, John, at the start of the season, and I'm still not convinced with Marsh. I know they added Weston McKennie yesterday. Yeah. I think Leeds could be right in it as well. Where do you think we'll finish now as we close out this stream?
I think my head has not changed. I think as things currently stand, I would still, with purely because of, as I mentioned, the limiting factor in O'Neill and his management team, I still see us going, unfortunately, pessimistically, I still see us going down in terms of my head. But at the same time, I gave us 34 points. I mean, there are seasons where I think most seasons 35, good chunk of seasons 36,
36, yeah,
keep you up. I mean, 40 points is the big mark that most managers talk about. 38 points has been the mark basically 10 seasons out of the last 11 or something like that. So 38 or 13, 38 8 out of 11 or something like that. 39 gets you. So I mean, it's a tough start. I mean, we're away at Brighton next, at home to Newcastle, away to Wolves before we play City, Arsenal, and Liverpool 3 games in a row. It's these next 3 games that are massive, because the ones after that, obviously, you're not expecting to get
Liverpool at home. You never know these days.
True, but City and Arsenal will top two games in a row. But at the same time, you see the team. Games against the Big Six, we haven't picked up a single point against any of the Big Six yet. We haven't put in any kind of performance against the Big Six. Teams typically do not survive if they don't get anything. It's very, very rare that you get 0 points from the Big Six and don't stay and then still stay up. It's only happened once, I think. So, we've still got all those games that we really need to sort of try and start picking something out from. So, there's a lot of possibility, but at the moment it's just that. And the team's got to gel. The players have got to fit in. I do wonder what we're going to do in terms of language barrier with a few of these. The nice thing is Traoré's from the Ivory Coast, so him and Ouattara are both the only 2 French speakers. If Dembele goes out on loan, which has yet to be confirmed, so hopefully there's some connection, but I hope we get a translator in for them, because otherwise it's going to be very awkward in strategy meetings. So, a lot of new players, a lot of people to fit in, a lot of stuff to work around, and O'Neill's not got long if he doesn't turn it around. So let's there's still possibilities. Heart still would love us to stay up, but head still says I don't see it yet.
Traorè is still having his photos taken, so we might miss this on this stream as we do close out. Do hit the like button. Do subscribe to Cherries Red Army. We are going to be with you every minute of the way in the second half of the season. Can I do a little shout out as well for our sponsors, Aquashine Exteriors? Details for them in the description. If you're local to BCP, Dorset, Hampshire, Southampton, give them a call for all your external cleaning, patios, guttering. You can check them out on Instagram as well. They put some nice videos over there, so go check them out. They are our sponsors. Thank you for that. Thank you to our monthly members. Aaron, it's got there. It took us about 19 days to get going, but we got there. We should feel more positive. We've got a real chance. We've got a preview that me and John will be doing on Thursday for Brighton. And we go again. We've got to give this a go. I don't mind getting relegated, Aaron, but let's have a go.
Yeah, look, it's exciting times. We brought 6 in, 5 who I would say could easily be starting very, very soon, if not straight away. And that's going to help, isn't it? You know, so yeah, exciting times. Can't wait for, you know, I'm actually enthused for the next game, I have to say. And if it doesn't work out, then hopefully, look, we've seen Bill Foley's attitude and what he wants to achieve. And if the worst was to happen and we go down, hopefully we'll come straight back up, and then the sky's the limit, because look at the money available and look at the players we can attract now. So hopefully, good times ahead. Let's just hope there's not too many bumps in the road.
Players on long contracts, right? Me and John, we got Brighton preview live. We're not sure what time. Might be 7:30, might be 8 o'clock. But do check us out on all our socials. Do just check the YouTube channel, hit the notification bell. We've got to kickstart this season again, John. We'll have the preview on Thursday, myself and you, and looking forward to it.
Yeah, absolutely. It's been a 2-week break between matches, obviously because we've been out of the FA Cup. But we've got, an opportunity to really make a statement with bringing some form back, some new players in. I've been very pessimistic, but I'll still be absolutely well up for this next for this game, as will the FA game, and we will preview it together on Thursday.
We will. Fantastic. So Ouattara's through the door, Randolph, Semenyo, Viña, and today on deadline day, we had Zabarnyi and Traorè waiting for those photos, waiting for those updates from the club. But we're being told by the best journalists around the country following the Cherries that Traorè is a done deal. Maybe one more, according to Chris Temple. Thanks for joining me, John and Aaron, on this deadline day stream. It's been great to speak with all of you. Thanks to everyone. Hit the like button. Continue to follow the Cherries. We'll see you on Thursday for a match preview of Brighton. But until then, look after yourselves and we'll see you soon. Up Cherries.
Up Cherries.
Up Cherries.